जय हिंद दोस्तों, मैं हूं मेजर मोहम्मद अली शाह और मुझे बहुत खुशी हो रही है कि मैं अपने एक बहुत ही इलस्ट्रियस सीनियर के साथ अभी गुफ्तगू में होऊंगा, जिन्होंने फौज में अपनी सेल्फलेस सर्विस दी है। 2009 में ये फौज से रिलीज हुए और ये बाहर आए। इन्होंने बहुत ही अच्छी किताब लिखी है, एक बहुत ही इंस्पायरिंग जोश टाइप। इसका ट्रेलर यूट्यूब पे मैं 1 मिनट का ट्रेलर मैं देख चुका हूँ और बहुत ही इंस्पायर, बहुत ही मुतासर हुआ था इनसे, इनकी बुक के ट्रेलर से। एंड द बुक इज ऑन आवर नेशनल हीरो मेजर सुधीर वालिया, अशोक चक्र, सेना मेडल बार, from 9 para special forces, who needs no introduction at all. We all know about Major Walia. Many of us have been inspired and they have joined the army because of Major Walia. In fact, sir, I interviewed the UPSC topper last year, and she told me that she was inspired by Major Sudhir Walia. That's why she wanted to attend for the army. That's what she had told me. And so let's go on further and talk to you about this book, sir. We know it's releasing on 17th of May at the USI, and it's going to be released by the former Chief of the Army Staff, General VP Malik, who was the chief during the Kargil time. So I would, and I've seen the cover of this book, very attractive cover, sir. So I would like to know what inspired you to write this book, sir.
Good evening, Major Shah, and thank you so much for bringing me on this platform and this show. I feel privileged and honored to be here with you. And you yourself have no mean background. I mean, son of an illustrious father and an illustrious uncle. And you have trailblazed yourself in so many ways. So it's a very proud moment to be here with you today. And Jai Hind to all your viewers and listeners. Major Shah, this assignment came to me post my 2 other books. This is my third book. Love to write on military subjects because that is what runs in my veins and in my blood. So I feel those subjects are very uh, easy to write for me because I have been in the same areas, in the same locations. I've experienced the same tempo and the same baptism by fire. And something which is so intrinsic to me comes easy to me. This book came to me from, the project came to me via the publisher, and he asked me if I could write this book. He had read my other 2 books. It took me about 2 months to decide because the subject was very vast and it's a very complex story. It's not as easy as my other 2 books. So, and then finally I said yes. I wrote out a synopsis and he was blown over and he said, we have to do this. And I said, yes, we will. And that's how the story started and that's how the writing started. My mission has been
Sir.
to put on pedestal all heroes and all military heroes who've been decorated and let the youth and the nation know about them. That is my mission, and that is what I hope to achieve through this book. Hello.
Thank you so much for writing this book, sir. But before we talk on this book, I would like to. Can you hear me, sir? Sir,
Yes, I can.
Before I go on with this book, sir, I would like to rewind a bit and talk to you on your first earlier 2 books, sir. What were they on, and which year did you publish them, sir?
So my first book was is called Tryst with Destiny Abhikrama. That was my first book, and it basically I poured in my experiences of the Kashmir Valley and when I was operating over there, like all of us have done in some time or the other during our service. And it I also kind of included political intrigue that is all around us today, and there is enough political intrigue. So I mixed politics and military and made this into a military politico-military thriller. uh, The second book, of course, is a very interesting story again. Uh, there was a campaign into Abyssinia, present day Ethiopia, in 1868. Uh, f- from the campaign was launched from the Mumbai presidency when forces under the British flag uh, sailed across to Ethiopia in 1868 and ransacked the kingdom of Ethiopia, then Abyssinia. The emperor was killed. His son was brought back to India, and they brought back almost 250 camel loads of treasure and loot. My own regiment was part of this campaign, and this story had existed in my regiment for a long time. But Indians are very bad historians, and especially in the army, we kind of tend to get more into action than into writing. And there was nothing written about the story. I only heard it through word of mouth. There was a cross which had come back from Ethiopia, which was supposedly cursed, and every time the cross was taken out by second grenadiers, there's something went wrong in the battalion. So the cross was repatriated back to Ethiopia on the instances of the soldiers. 1857 mutiny had just taken place, and the British officers did not want another problem on their hands. Years later, I got posted into Ethiopia. I took my battalion, and I was leading a contingent of 1,800 troops. And to my excitement and intrigue, I found myself exactly in the same areas. My camps were exactly located in the same areas where the campaigning force had gone. And it gave me such a rush, such an adrenal rush. I tried to look for facts. I couldn't. I kept searching. Finally, I got some leads a few years back, and then I went into the British archives. I went to into the archives, the Ethiopian archives in Addis Ababa and London, and I found fascinating pieces of history which I pieced together to make this book. So everything about the book today is true, 95%. There are parts of the book which are fiction, which is the horror part, which I kind of, that's the only part which is probably fiction. The rest of it is true, but it is so interestingly woven that you won't know the difference. There are two, three hunts in the book, which of course have I have taken inspiration from my grandfather's stories, who was a shikari in his own right. So his days and his stories come through in those hunts in the book. Uh, and yes, you have the curse of Magdala, which is a very interesting story, and a lot of people have loved it.
Yes, sir. So quite different to
I
this
must
book.
tell
In
you
fact,
one other very interesting fact. There is a gentleman called, you must have heard of the Charge of the Light Brigade, and we
of
all
course,
read
of
the.
course, of course,
So
there's a very
the
famous poem as well. I know this poem by heart, sir.
yes, guns to the right of them, guns to the left of them, volleyed and thundered,
Sir.
and in rode the 600. The gentleman who led the charge was a Lieutenant Alexander Dunn, who survived the charge. He was one of the few survivors. He comes back to India much later and became a colonel, and he led the 33rd Regiment in the Abyssinian campaign. He died in a hunting accident in Abyssinia. I visited his grave, and there was Victoria Cross on it. He got the Victoria Cross for the charge that he had led as a young lieutenant. When I visited his grave, I didn't know he's the same Lieutenant Alexander Dunn who led the charge of the Light Brigade, because the grave was in some forgotten graveyard in Ethiopia, which is not a military graveyard. Much later, when I started doing my research, I found that there was this grave of the gentleman that I visited, and he's no one else but the man who led the charge of the Light Brigade. And I mean, such interesting facts came out over there. So he is there in the book. There's a gentleman called Captain Speedy, who was born in Kanpur, educated in India, served in the Northwest Frontier Province with the Sikhs. He became a mercenary and was working with the Ethiopian emperor. He was hired as a translator because he was the only one who knew the Tigray language, and he went along with the force. Later on, he established the first police outpost in Malaysia, and that is how the Sikhs landed up in Malaysia. It was because of Captain Speedy, who took a platoon of Sikhs to establish a police outpost. And that's how you find Sikhs today in Malaysia. That was Captain Speedy and his soldiers who went over there. Very colorful character and a very interesting character again. And if you Google him, you'll
Very
find him. You'll find his pictures and his anecdotes all over the place.
So that's very interesting, sir. So let's okay. So the publishers asked you, that, would you do this book, and it took you 2 months to decide on it. In those 2 months, sir, did you meet Major Walia's family? Did you what did you do in those 2 months? What made you finally say yes?
So see, when you write a book, there is a deep commitment that you have to make to yourself and to the readers. I do a lot of research before I start writing and before I even make up my mind. Uh, See, from the time that Major Walia died till today, it's almost over 25, 26 years. And there wasn't much available. I didn't want to do a shoddy job, and I wanted to bring out a book that will inspire a generation of young Indians. And the story should be told in the right forum and in the right manner. So it took me 2 months to decide whether I wanted to do this story. Uh, there was very little available literature, very little available facts, very little available. Most of the men that he had served with had some of them had, of course, been casualties, but a lot of them had retired by this time, especially the NCOs and the JCOs, even officers. I wanted the story to be told through the from ground upwards, the kind of action that you and me have seen as young officers. I wanted that kind of action. I didn't want strategy and art of war in the book. So I took time to understand the dynamics of the story and how I will try to make out the story, how will the story unfold. And I kind of framed the entire story in my head before I actually said yes. Once I was convinced that I could bring out the story in its form that I wanted it to be brought out, that's when I said yes to the book. It's only once I was convinced that I could do justice to his memory and to his legacy, that's when I decided to say yes.
So you must have visited his hometown, I'm sure, in Himachal.
I visited his hometown. What I did was I wrote out the complete manuscript. See, because my book is a very military book, it focuses on operations, it focuses on his relationship with the men, with his subordinates, with the other officers. It focuses on his life as a young officer in the army. So, while I wanted to meet the family, I wanted to finish the manuscript because my focus was on Major Sudhir Walia and the military aspect and the operational aspects of the book. After I finished my manuscript, then I went down to Palampur and I met the family and I told them that I am writing the book. They had heard of me, and I visited them. I spent time with them. It was an extremely emotional trip that I had to Palampur. I came back deeply affected, moved, influenced, and of course, it kind of resulted in the book itself, the manuscript itself, kind of got affected because of the way I felt. So there are certain parts that I tweaked after I came back. I also happened to visit the home of Lieutenant uh, Kalia there, the officer
Sir, sir.
Fojart
Saurabh Kalia.
was my cadet in IMA,
Okay,
and
sir.
it was an extremely moving experience to meet his parents, seeing the heroic stance and the shrine that they have maintained. I also visited Vikram Batra's house. It was an extremely emotional experience for me to visit Palampur. I came back and I think I was zoned out for almost about 10 days. I mean, I'm a veteran myself. I've seen life. I've been in Siachen. I've done operations. But when you go back and see the families and how they are living today after having lost their sons and brothers, and the heroism that they continue to display day after day, it kind of catches you by the throat.
So Captain Vikram Batra's twin brother Vishal is a very dear friend of mine. In fact, he was looking after ICICI. He was a big boss with them. In fact, so when you were penning down this book and a lot of research, you must have met officers from the nine para SF as well. I mean, because most of them had retired, of course, but the legends remain. The कहानियां जो साहब उनके टाइम पे ऐसा था, वो ऐसा करते थे, वैसा करते थे. These stories you would have heard, in fact, from his Paltan.
Yes. So what happens is, Ali, what happens is when you write a story, what happens is it's like a, you're like a, you're there. It's like a blind man around an elephant. Everyone has his version of the story. That's how it happens in operations also. When you speak to five people will give you their version of the story. Each version is correct. Um, so I spoke to the officers, most of whom had retired, of course, and I also had the good fortune of speaking to the men and to the JCOs. There are 3, 4 characters that I had developed in the book. So the book is not only about Major Sudhir Walia. You know it better than anyone else that when you conduct an operation, it's not only about one individual. I mean, it's not like a he's not an actual Rambo like you see in the movie where he goes all by himself. There's an entire team with him, and that team is supporting him. Of course, his bravery and his courage and his leadership does matter, but there's also a team which kind of operates with him. So this book also deals with some very interesting characters. There's a gentleman called Honorary Captain Mahindra Singh, Kirti Chakra, Sena Medal. He's got a spinal injury. He's injured with a bullet injury in his spine. He's wheelchair bound, but very fiery man, and someone who has been with Sudhir Walia throughout. There's Subedar Major Honorary Captain uh, Mukhtar, who did the probation under him, under Sudhir Walia, and he's himself a Shaurya Chakra, who was also figures in the book. Then there's another interesting character called Major Vinod, who was a Naik then, and he got a commission, and he happened to got commissioned in my battalion, and I in the Third Grenadiers, which is also a very decorated battalion. So I was his CO. So there are characters like this which I have developed, and all of these men and boys stayed with Sudhir, and they gave me such interesting stories, and then one kind of just pieced them together. I have, like I said, I have been to most of those places. I've operated in the same areas. So it became very, very easy for me to kind of visualize the scenes, visualize the topography, the geography, and create the story that you have before you.
Yeah. So we know he's Sena Medal bar, and could you tell the audience a bit about when he got his first Sena Medal and what about the operation that you would be? We would like to hear in your voice because you have a very deep, rich, resonant voice.
So he got 2 Sena medals. The first, there was one Sena medal that he got. He led an expedition to the Brahma Peak, and that also forms a very interesting chapter in my book, where it was extremely difficult climb that they led. He led an expedition of his own battalion, 9 paras. They went and scaled the Brahma's Peak, which is again in Kupwara. It's a peak which had not been attempted very many times. They were the first Indian mountaineering team to kind of go and summit that peak, and it was an extremely challenging peak. So he got a Sena medal for that. Then he also got a Sena medal for another operation, again in the valley, where he was almost caught in a crossfire between 2 militant groups who were actually fighting with each other, and the 9 para team was there laying an ambush, and they got caught between the 2 militant groups who were trying to fight with each other. And yeah, so he was there. He's also been there in the operation where Arun Jasrotia died. He was the same operation with Arun Jasrotia, who also got a Kirti Chakra. and they were close friends and subordinates and colleagues together. So that also was an operation, and of course, then he got the Ashok Chakra for the last operation um, in Hafruda forest, where he went in and raided a militant hideout with foreign militants in it. He got injured extremely badly, but he continued to fight on. And finally, he was airlifted, but he died before he could reach the hospital. Before this, he had also led the last attack in Kargil on Zulu Top, and he was recommended for a medal for this operation. The nine paras had done two operations in the Kargil war. One was the Sandro Top, and the second was the Zulu Top. And Zulu Top was the last operation, after which ceasefire was declared. So they went and captured it, and he and Major Nirmal Dhaliwal, then they were the two gentlemen who led the two teams up. He was recommended for an award, but before he could get this award, within a month, the operation Afruda forest operation happened, and he died. So that is why he got the Ashok Chakra. So that's how he was decorated with Sena Medal Bar and the Ashok Chakra, India's highest peacetime uh, award for operations.
So, so, sir, he was martyred in 1999. So 1999 से हमारे जहन में सबसे पहले तो कारगिल वॉर आती है. So would you like to tell our audience that was it an operation during the Kargil war when he attained martyrdom, or was it a terrorist operation that he was doing in 1999 where he attained the martyrdom, sir?
No, no. The Kargil war ended, and Major
Right.
Sudhir Walia led the last attack in Kargil war. In fact,
Okay.
after his attack and after the capture of Zulu Top, which was the last peak captured by the Indian Army under Major Walia and Major Nirmal Dhaliwal, ceasefire was declared. So
Right.
his claim to fame in the Kargil war is that he captured the last peak that was to be captured, and he led the last attack in Kargil war. After the Kargil war was over, there were still operations happening in the valley, and then he got embroiled in other operations. And
Sir.
he then, after there was a clean break between Kargil and this operation, and then it's in 1999 itself. Later, after the Kargil war, then he led this operation against militants in Hafruda, and that is when he died.
Sir. So let's talk about his colleague, the Special Forces NCO, who later on took commission in the Grenadiers, who joined your Paltan, in fact. Let's talk about that officer, sir. I mean, you would have heard stories. In fact, you would have had very easy access. कि आपको officer था, you could have taken stories from him. In fact, sir.
So, frankly, you won't believe. I mean, he was an officer, and you normally um, you wouldn't sit down and discuss backgrounds and past. And I was a CO, and he was quite junior, so I knew he was from the paras, and I knew he was from nine paras. But we really never discussed detailed stories about him. It was such a fascinating thing after I started writing, and I have retired now, and it's been about 15 years, 16 years since I had retired. So once I started writing the book and I was getting hold of people from Nine Para, I had almost written three-fourths of the manuscript. And that's when someone from my unit said, Sir, Vinod bhi to hai, usko kyun nahi puछte, wo to Nine Para ka hai. And then I
अरे
contacted
sir.
Vinod and I said, Vinod, you're sitting here quietly all by yourself, and I have been searching all over the country looking for people who knew Sudhir Walia. He said, "Ha, sir, he was my buddy. I operated with him. We went into the Zulu Peak together, into the attack, and in fact, Sudhir also was part of the IPKF as part of Fort Jat. He was commissioned into Fort Jat, so he was there in Sri Lanka, and Major that time recruit Vinod was doing his probation in Sri Lanka because Nine Para also was in Sri Lanka. So they happened to be together on the same island, within kilometers of each other. Of course, they didn't know each other then. And so he proved himself in Sri Lanka. He was motivated by Nine Para, which he had kind of trained under Nine Para. Forjat had sent a platoon under 9 para, and they were trained by 9 para. So he was very, very motivated by 9 para. There was a gentleman called Yash Saxena, who was senior to him in NDA, who also motivated him. And he then put in his application for change of volunteer for 9 paras. He came down, they went for the young officers course, and then the unit had moved to Mau by that time, and then he changed over and did his probation. The rest is history.
Right, sir. Sir. So, I was a hardcore SF opti and I had made up my mind, मैं 9 paras में ही जाऊंगा because before I joined the army, before I joined the OTA, so I became very close to the deputy GOC of 54 Div in Secunderabad, Brigadier Shashi Khanna. He was from 9SF. And he told me, son, join the army, join the OTA, but 9SF में ही जाना and give your first choice that. I said, ठीक है sir. I was full of जोश अभी भी है. And that is one of my regrets in life actually sir. मैं वो maroon beret नहीं पहन पाया real life में. Real life में पहनी बाद में. मैंने did a web series on the surgical strike where I played the para commando in that. और वो
Right.
चिड़िया बचपन बैज एंड वो कमांडो वो ग्लैमर जो होता है ना सर वो बट इट्स मोर देन द ग्लैमर इट्स द रगड़ा इट्स द जुनून जो मेरे जहन में था हमेशा से था
Yes.
सर सर
नहीं
लेट्स टॉक अबाउट सर
वो तो see, as a young officer, when you're getting commissioned and when you're in the academy, the pureness in your heart and the fire in your belly is something that you can never hope to achieve ever again. There is so much of there's so much of go and there's so much of fire in you. I mean, you can probably uh, turn a mountain into rubble. That's the kind of energy that you have at that point of time. And
दैट्स राइट
even later, yes, of course, yeah, paras requires a special kind of dedication, and it requires a special kind of focus. And hats off to them, the kind of service that they do and the kind of operations that they have, the kind of zeal that they have is of another level. Like someone said, that it is mind numbing courage and hair rising actions that you're doing, something which is unfathomable or unconceivable by a normal civilian or a man on the street. You can't even conceive that kind of courage or that kind of bravery. That's the kind of acts that they do. And that is the reason why these kind of stories need to be brought out. One of my
वेरी
missions, and I've written in the foreword, is that if this story inspires one boy from 130 crore Indians to become another Sudhir Walia, his sacrifice will pursue redemption. One boy.
That is very true, sir. That's very true. And I'm certain it's going to motivate a lot of youngsters because sir, I was just finishing my school and in 1997, there was Lieutenant Puneet Datta, Ashok Chakra, and from I think 111 GR, if I'm not mistaken, from one of the GR battalions and second generation. And I was so inspired when I read about him. And for 1990, 2 years later almost, I read about Major Sudhir Walia, and I was myself very inspired. And thank you very much for bringing him back to life. I mean, though martyrs never die, they become legends, and they live in our hearts and minds forever. And martyrs are brave. There's no doubt about the fact. Their families are the bravest. And as you would have experienced when you went to Palampur, sir, when you met Lieutenant Saurabh Kalia's family, when you met Captain Vikram Batra's family, sir. And lastly, before I let you go, I would like to ask you, how can one lay their hands on this book, sir? It would be available in the nearest bookstore on
So,
Amazon.
right now, the pre order link is out. In fact, I will share the pre order link. It is available on Amazon and you can go and order it. The book launch is scheduled for the 17th of May. After that, the book will be also available at bookstores all over the country. There is a tremendous amount of excitement that has happened over the book in the past couple of months. And I see a lot of people making inquiries. In fact, moment we put out the pre-order link, we had a spate of bookings happening because I think a lot of people were eagerly waiting for this book. So yes, you can go down and kind of bu- buy the book on Amazon even today, and it'll probably get delivered to you somewhere around 8th or 9th or 10th of May. I wanted to read out a small paragraph from the
Yes, yes,
book,
please,
if
sir. Please, sir.
you would
Please.
permit me.
Oh, of course, sir. Please.
Uh, so, one, sorry. So, this is a interesting paragraph page that I wanted to read out to you and to your viewers. Kargil, Cliffs, Courage and Glory, Operation Vijay. It starts with a quote: I won't die in an accident or of any disease. I'll go down in glory. Mashko Valley, 24th July 1999. He sniffed the air like a predator on a hunt. The unmistakable pungency of kerosene, urine, and fear. Leering, he wet his cracked, sore lips. He would get his kill and his glory. Clinging onto the rock, he heaved himself up just an inch. Dried mucus caked his nostrils, constricting the already rarefied oxygen. The wind stung his face and eyes. His fingertips were raw, the skin peeling off from the sub zero temperatures of the rough rock surface. He only felt a thrill surging through his veins, unmindful of the screaming muscles. They did not matter. Squeezing his eyes, he forced out the tears, blurring his vision. He focused on the ghost like figure silhouetted by the blizzard beyond the rocky Sangad wall. India sweltered in the summer heat, but here in the Mashko Valley, at 5,200 meters above sea level, the harsh winter was still clinging on by its fingernails, refusing to leave, like the Pakistani intruders who had infiltrated into the ridgelines of Kargil. Men sweated here to pluck out the enemy, violating the sanctity of their country. Hanging next to him, Naik Vinod Nach Sudhir, pointing down at the small band of brave men, Anchal, Bijli, Darpan, balanced precariously on the narrow ledge. It ended in a dark, bottomless abyss. It had taken the Alpha team all night in pitch darkness to clamber up through the minefield, fixing the ropes, defying the gravity on the vertigo rock face. A free climb was only possible without cumbersome gloves. Sudhir had attempted the climb barely 10 days after leaving Delhi without acclimatization. Huddled against the howling icy wind, they shielded their freezing bodies against an outcrop, thawing their frozen trigger fingers against warm breaths. The Alpha team savored what could be their last moments. Bravery aside, it could go either way. A hollow pull in the stomach, the bladder praying from frozen tubes, refusing to piss out, lungs heaving from exhaustion, and the nagging fear were familiar sensations. They knew how to overcome fear, the panic that could blow an untrained mind apart. That's why they had risked it again and again and had survived till now. They trusted him more than their own beliefs, more than their own gods. In this moment, they wanted no one else. Fused with their souls, he felt bonded with each of them, a mysterious feeling that connects men willing to die together for each other. In the breaking light of the false dawn, he quickly pointed out the positions as best as he could. Outnumbered, they always operated at odds in small teams. Surprise and the violence of their attack would give them the edge. The Zulu Ridge comprised of three distinct complexes: the Tri-Junction, the Spur, and the Top. The third Gurkha rifles had captured the tri-junction and the spur. The escaping enemy had gathered at the top. It was now the mission of 9 para-special forces to capture the top. Looming ominously beyond was the dark, scraggy escarpment marking the end of the Zulu top. Between them and the gigantic rock was a narrow strip of land, a mere 75 meters long. They knew they would have to fight for every meter of that land, step by bloody step.
Wow. So as you were reading it out, as you were describing, I could visualize and I could categorically see everything before my eyes. It was just flashing before my eyes. The entire scene, the entire scenario, everything was just flashing before my eyes. And I look forward to laying my hands on this book, sir. And I would be reading it very soon, ordering it since the pre-order copy, the link is out already. I am doing it right away. Sir, I sincerely thank you for your time, sir. It was very, very nice of you to have come up and spoken about your book, sir. And before I let you go, any last message, sir, about the book, about your previous books, about anything from your side you would like to throw it in the universe, sir?
I just want to give this message um, to everyone who's listening, that these are the heroes who've given their life for the nation, for all of you. Be worthy of their sacrifice. As a nation, as individuals, be worthy of the sacrifice that the soldiers make for you. Be worthy of the uniform that bleeds for you. Read this book, get inspired, and turn into good citizens. Every one of us can be a Sudhir Walia in his own way. You don't have to scale the Zulu top or fight the militants in Afruda. You just have to be good citizens and feel for the nation and love the soldier as much as he loves the nation. Jai Hind.
Absolutely, sir. Very well said, Jahan, sir. So it reminds me of a small video, which YouTube video, which was shared on my regimental group yesterday, where a veteran is saying that often as a veteran, people come and say, "Thank you for your service," and the best reply to that is they give is, "You were worth it." That's why I
Yes,
mean, so
I
I
read that too,
sir,
that you were
sir,
worth it.
that's an amazing video, amazing video. It really
Yes,
moved me,
amazing.
and sir,
Very
sir.
moving and very powerful.
Sir. And I would like to leave the show on this quote, where which we all, as officers, we take an oath in the army, the Chetwood Credo, which says, "The safety, honor, welfare of your country come first, always and every time. The honor, welfare, and comfort of the men you command comes next. Your own ease, comfort, and safety comes last, always and every time." And since you mentioned about you went to the grave of the officer who led the charge on the Light Brigade, and so it reminded me of the time when I was with the Assam Rifles posted in Kohima. In fact, आप भी नागालैंड में रहे हैं सर. एक
Yes.
बहुत जरूरी एक अहम बात तो आपसे गुफ्तगू करना तो रहेगा ही सर. We will come to that. That thank God I recollected that, sir.
Yeah, I
So
was in Chakabama where your father was a brigade commander. Sorry, a BM, you
forgive me,
said.
sir.
So I've served in Chakabama, and of course, we've served in parts of Nagaland and Manipur. And you've been there too. So
sir.
it's the common link.
So, बल्कि चकाबामा ना जब मैं this is the three coat tie that I'm wearing, the spare coat tie, where I was
Right.
the ADC, and incidentally my father was a co-commander and I was his ADC there.
Right.
Very rare combination. So I had
Yes.
heard so much about Chakabama. I had grown up talking about Chakabama. तो जब मैं गया वहां पे तो मैंने I had that desire to go and see Chakabama, a place I grew up hearing. So मैं कोहिमा से भी वो रूट लिया, वापस आए फ्रॉम चकमामा, फूड जीरो, चसामी, उखरूल, मणिपुर होते हुए from that side. So and I had a lot of Chakasang friends, Dr. Mero and a whole lot of people were.
Yes.
So in fact,
Even I have a lot of Pakistan friends because I stayed there. So Food Zero and Tadubi and all those places. One had
so,
a lot of friends, and the Chakesangs are a beautiful tribe. I mean, entire Nagaland is beautiful, and really enjoyed my time there. And the music and the dances and the people and the entire country is so beautiful. Yes, it's a lovely place to serve in.
एब्सोल्युटली सर, एब्सोल्युटली। मुझे बहुत खास लगाव है सर नॉर्थ ईस्ट पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया से। एक मणिपुर, नागालैंड, मिजोरम, त्रिपुरा, असम, अरुणाचल से तो अपनी मैंने स्कूलिंग शुरू की थी सर। अब नॉर्थ ईस्ट की बात बिछड़ गई तो हम, आई नो गुफ्तगू चलती रहेगा, तो मैं आपको फोन करूंगा, आपको मैं फोन पे बात करेंगे।
And I'll
सर
also like to, through your channel, also tell your viewers that anyone who likes to come for the book launch, please do come, because we are going to have the sister and brother-in-law of Major Sudhir Walia there. There is going to be the sister and brother-in-law again of Arun Jasrotia, who's going to be visiting us. Uh, Honorary Captain Mahinder Kirti Chakra was going to be there. It'll be an honor to meet him. There is going to be Honorary Captain Mukhtar Saab, who's going to be there. Of course, General Malik is going to be there. There'll be an entire galaxy of serving generals. There'll be officers from 9 para. There'll be officers from other para regiments. So it's going to be a very emotional and a heady evening, and all of you are welcome to come and be part of the
सर
proceedings.
sir. And particularly, I would like to thank Colonel Monish Gulati. In fact, in the morning, he sent me a message about your book, and straight away, my LinkedIn में जाके देखा, and it was we were colleagues earlier, sir. We had worked together for a very brief while, and of course, then Veer
He's a
Gautam
nice,
Ganguly,
dear
my
friend, course mate, a very gentle
sir,
man and a very nice
sir.
person. And I'm so thankful to him for getting us introduced and for us to meet. I mean, that's what destiny is. And I think when our paths had to cross, our paths have crossed.
Very true, sir. Very true. Sir, बहुत मजा आया आपके साथ गुफ्तगू में, and your book is going to be a bestseller. It's going to take the world by storm. I can see that happening, sir. Sir, thank you very much, sir. Good night, sir. Jai Hind, sir.
Thank you, Major Shah. Good night and a Jai Hind to you.
Sir. Just going